Yo, I'm curious. How, when, and why do you most access your powers or influence of manipulation? And does it serve you in a healthy way? Welcome back to Prolific Shift Sunday Sit Down. This is season 3, episode 2, coming at you. And remember, this segment of Prolific Shifts is all about just offering to the world things that you might reflect upon. The main segment of Prolific Shifts is doing work with Black educators around personal and professional development. So last week, the question was really thinking about how you might benefit from a shift, change, or transformation in your world. This week, we're moving to something different, and I don't think we're strangers to it because of the way that we consume social media, the way that we consume media in general, the news, and because we are humans who are interdependent as much as we don't want to be interdependent, right? So our lives and livelihoods literally depend on others. Our feelings of satisfaction and well-being literally depend on others. And there's a lot in the world that talks about self-care, taking time for yourself, like I'm gonna do me, I'm dolo solo, and we wear those badges with pride, and boy, are they not things to be proud of. And we live in a world whose conditions, whose environment have kind of made it difficult to not feel that that's the easier way or that's the thing to do. So we're really focused on manipulation today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about like why that matters or why it's interesting to me. So here's how I'm coming this week. And I'm not coming from nowhere, coming from where I'm from. I'm coming from a real place of trying to understand the way that I have moved and worked in this world, right? So I used to teach a course in my very first school to ninth graders called Humanities 1. And the course had 4 essential questions. Who am I? What is my place? Or some people would say, what is my story? What is my place? What does it mean to be human? And how then shall we live? I also taught a senior elective called Outlaws, Outcasts, and Castaways, where we were thinking a lot about like what it means in this world to exist and work and act and love and kill and die and all of that on the margins, right? So in both of these spaces, that question, what does it mean to be human, comes out because a lot of marginalization is like deprivation of some aspect of humanity. So I'm always thinking about that. Who would we be if we were or felt free? Who would we be if our needs were most taken care of? At the end of the day, I always come down to this idea that the most human thing that we do and are is manipulative. We are always manipulating. And my students rarely love that. I still say this to this day, and students get kind of wound up by it. And I say manipulation not with any value attached to it. To me, manipulation doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be destructive. It just is. People tend to get mad tight when I say the word manipulation. Humans, there are other assertions of what it means to be human. You could always make an argument that it means to be loving, caring, and deep in relationship. You can also make arguments that to be human is to tell stories. Like I found that storytelling animal piece really compelling. Like we're always sharing, we're always telling a story, even in offering our names or our desires or our needs. Like there are stories behind that. So I'm with that too. But I still think that the most human thing we do is manipulate. And it starts before we have like super complex cognitive processes, I think. There are lots of those studies just look at babies, right? So they'll throw that thing off their little high chair and laugh at you time after time as you have to pick it up. And they know that when they throw it again, somebody's going to pick it up, right? Manipulative as hell. And it's not always bad. We also manipulate people for good, you can argue. We try to assert and offer ourselves in a way that make people more likely to like us. Helps us to be accessible and warm or whatever that desire is. And that's manipulative because we know humans are complex and we know we have dark sides. And that's what's I'm glad that we try to assert like a good part of ourselves. But at the end of the day, we out here manipulating all the time. So there's that class I taught, which was also just a game changer for me, right? So the Hume one was religious studies and philosophy paired with English lit. So love that. And then Outlaws, Outcasts, and Castaways was a senior elective in English lit, but gave me a chance to not only focus on those who the mainstream society have seen as central, but those who are on the margins from their perspectives and voices, right? So those were really important things in my world. But back to manipulation. So part of what's striking to me in this world where I think we are all on the whole, we have a mindset that's geared more towards being healthy, that's really geared more towards taking care of ourselves, finding what we need, creating futures for others that we might not have seen possible, or those before us might not have seen as possible. And I still feel like some of the approach is icky, and I can't quite figure out what it is. Like sometimes when people are talking about boundaries, they actually sound like the unhealthy ones. And it makes me wonder, like, how do we talk about, like, even the way people post about boundaries, or the way even I have posted about boundaries and healthy families, like, what is that manipulating? Like, what is that doing for me? What is it doing for others? Like, how are we holding that? And so it started to make me think of how, when, and why we most access our powers or influence of manipulation. And this is interesting. So I told myself I was going to keep this one shorter than usual. So I'm going to try to wrap it out up here. But so my interest in this, I started to think about, like, when I asked myself this question, and in a way that I want to share with anybody who might be listening. Again, different answers for different people and experiences. But when I find myself most accessing my powers or influence of manipulation, the one that strikes me most is I am good at manipulating people in the sense that if I don't want you to know how I'm feeling, you won't know how I'm feeling. I don't wear it on my face. Like, even what you think is disgust is usually just I'm bored. Like if I don't want people to know what I feel, they won't. And that is interesting to me because when I think about how that functions in relationship, how that functions in teaching, how that functions in leadership, how that will function when I'm a parent or if I'm a parent, it's kind of wild to think that I have figured out that if I don't show how I feel, I can be less vulnerable, or I can decide what people, how people read and see me. Fascinating. And does this serve me in a healthy way? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, sometimes it helps me to preserve myself and integrity, but ultimately, is it healthy for my heart and for my future? Probably not. And part of the reason I'm not sure if it serves me in a healthy way is if I'm holding it and I'm the only one holding it, is that ultimately good for my body? Does that mean that my relationships are grounded in something authentic? Like, that's a lot to think about. And that's something that, as I head into this week in particular, I want to just bring more into my awareness. When I'm feeling, how, where, why do I share or not share that? And uh, at what cost? What's at stake when I do and when I don't? Are those spaces where I feel like the relationships are genuine and mutual, or are those spaces that I might need to reevaluate fully, and not just because of how someone else is engaging, but because of how I'm engaging. So this week, I hope that y'all join me in this. So bring some awareness of manipulation into your world. How does it work for you? Like, what does it change? What are you not doing when you manipulate? And what can you learn from that awareness and from some reflection around that? So join me in that this week, and let's see what we can do to shift and get ourselves, like, hopefully to a healthier overall space, or at the very least to bring it into awareness and sit with it and see what it is that we like about it and what we don't like about it. All right, y'all. Peace.